Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Speaking of Data. I'm Julie Rieger, and I'm your host. So, just to give you a little bit of background, I'm the former president and chief data strategist and head of media. It's a really long title at 20th Century Fox Film. And prior to that, I worked in the agency world for about 17 years. So, in addition to my corporate life, I published a book with Simon and Schuster, and then I'm also a podcast host for iHeartRadio. And I'm sure everybody's wondering two questions. One is the answer is Leo, duh. And then the other one is the Arkansas thing, the shirt. I'm not really a fan. It was just on sale at Academy. So just as long as we get that out of the way, we can move on. So you have my brief oral resume. And so now let's get to the really good stuff about why we're here. So when I was at Fox, I knew I needed to reinvent myself. And at the time, I was the EVP of media. And because I came from media marketing, I kind of knew a thing or two about data. And as I was trying to sort out how I needed to evolve, I thought, well, that's it, it's data. So I really set out to transform myself and hoping to do what I could to help the company. So I began this journey to learn what I could and to build a solid vision for our CEO, Stacy Snyder, and how data could help really help us make better decisions. Not give us all the answers because data can't do that, but it can really help us humans make better decisions. So the first call I made when I started on this journey was to my friend, Peter Mazzanagro. And those who don't know Peter, he's the co-founder and CEO of Panoramic. And he was still and still to this day, and at that time, he was certainly the smartest and most strategic person that I knew. So it was him that I began this journey with into this vast and frankly treacherous lands of data, lots of mines and lots of things that can poke you and hurt you. So I sit in front of you today as an old dog that learned a few new tricks, an old dog that ascended in her career to a position, like a incredibly high position. And I'm a small town girl from Oklahoma. Right. So everybody, just so you know, if I could do this, you could do this. And I hate when people say that, especially when the diet fiends say that kind of stuff. If I could lose 100 pounds, so can you. But in this case, if I can learn data, I promise you can too. So I'm not done with this journey. I want to know more. So with the help of Peter and with the help of the women of Panoramic, let's blaze some new trails together. So I really hope you guys stay on this ride with us. So our format that we're going to have with this is that I'm going to have guests on every week. We're going to learn about their background, about their data journey, and we're going to pick their brain really for some no BS topics, because that's the last thing we need. We don't need any BS in this. So for our first episode, I'm going to be speaking with Kellie Taylor. So Kellie, welcome.
Hey, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Oh my God, I couldn't be happier for you, my dear, to be my very first guest. I've always admired your brain. And today, your hair. So you look fabulous.
You as well.
Thank you. So what's your current role? I know it, so I'm just asking that for everybody else.
Okay, I can tell everybody else. So currently, I'm a senior director of analytics at Panoramic.
And then how did you find your way there?
Let's see. So I was studying social psychology and then did my master's in applied psychology. So applied psychology is this is a long gutful, but applying psychological principles to a business setting and kind of what's understanding social behavior today, if not social media and the technology and the phones and the computers in front of you. So really digging into the data to understand and drive why people and why your customers are making decisions. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
So how do you actually explain your job to your family?
Yeah, I mean, I think every year I try to explain to them what I do, but I like to frame it to them as I work with marketers, which typically most people understand, and I help them find the data answers that they need. So what that looks like is how are they going to target the right audience with their right product at the right time? And I think that's more important as every year goes on. People want more personalized information in the ads they're getting. So it's really cool when that all comes together.
Do they understand that?
I mean, they smile and then move on to the next question, but I like to think so.
Oh, that's hilarious. I spent years trying to explain to my mother what I did, and I never succeeded. So Speaking of data, which is the title of our show, let's dive in here. So WTF, sister, is a marketing technology stack. Those are all companies run together. So why don't you help us out?
Yeah, let's jump in. So simply a marketing technology stack, which can also be referred to as a MarTech stack, is the collection of softwares and tech tools that marketers use to optimize, augment, and kind of update their marketing processes or go through their marketing processes. So all of the pieces of technology that are used for planning, executing, measuring marketing tactics. And this is throughout the entirety of the customer journey or the customer lifecycle.
All right, in all fairness, I understood about 3 of every 4 words. So if you can, either in English or maybe with a crayon, could you maybe show us kind of what you just said?
Yeah, so let's pull up this little diagram here. And let's look at what the modern marketing technology stack looks like. So we can kind of picture this tech stack as flowing like this. We have component 1, which is our data sources on the left. Component 2, which is our data pipelines. 3 is our data warehouse. 4 is this transformation layer. And then component 5 is our visualization or our business intelligence tool. So kind of getting our bearings here, the marketing tech stack is really beginning and ending with your marketing strategies as a marketer. All of these pieces fit into it.
So your stack would look different based on your strategy. And if that's the case, could you give us kind of like 2 opposing examples?
Yeah, so in an ideal world, Julie, like a one-size-fits-all marketing stack would work for any business. Like that would be amazing. But in reality, the type of business that you have really impacts the technologies that you find important and how those would be organized together. So kind of 2 opposing examples that I like to give are business A that sells their products and services to consumers. So that's a direct-to-consumer brand. Compared to business B, which sells directly to businesses, so a business-to-business brand. So while some of these tools are foundationally the same, like you might have a data warehouse, you might have a visualization tool, each of the businesses are still going to use different channels and techniques. These would be like your data sources to acquire, reach, and engage all of the customers, which translates into different technology needs and different point solutions along the way in the technology stack.
That I understood. So that's actually a good transition because you talk about data sources, right? Because that is probably the biggest difference, right? Based on somebody's business are the sources that they use, they're feeding, their insights. So let's talk data sources. Tell me about them.
So yeah, looking at the first component in the tech stack are your data sources. These are unique to all of your customer touch points. So as we talked about business A, business B, these are going to be different. And the ones that I have in our diagram right now are only kind of a small subset of what the MarTech ecosystem is. I think there's over like 8,000 tools, applications, and services. It's growing. I think in the past 10 years, it grew over like 5,000% with the number of solutions available to everyone. But for the purposes of like our chat right now, here's just like a little sample of what's available. So what your data sources consist of, these include paid media platforms, email applications, attribution partners, the list goes on, web analytics tools, online and offline transactional databases, your customer relationship management databases, and so on. You can take a breath there. So essentially all of your marketing data, all of your most essential data starts its life in these silos, as you can see, in all of these different categories that are kind of sporadic throughout wherever your customers are. And this isn't really helpful for analysis, right? Your marketing performance, getting the data answers that you need. All of this data really needs to be collected and viewed in the same place to make like the most impactful decisions for your business.
So before we go on, I just have to tell you something very funny. I come from the generation of where we had books that we had to go into if there was a library at the agency, we had to photocopy and I had to use different color markers because JCPenney was the first account I ever worked on. And I had to use different color markers for each quarter and I had to go pull up all the stuff. So So obviously as a marketer, I do understand data sources coming from the media side. And I get some inputs are created, meaning social media like that is created when people engage with you. You know, some are bought. So if you are a business that is disintermediated from your customer, you have to buy customer data. And then some data can be free, like, you know, census data. So this all makes sense. That is until we get to ELT. And this has always been my hang up. And it's changed acronyms. See, and that's even worse, is changing, because we used to call it ETL and now it's ELT. So and acronyms always get me. So I did not fully understand this when I was at my role at Fox, in full transparency, because I didn't get why I had to have that. It didn't make any sense to me. It's like, wait, the data's there. Why can't I just get to it? And that was, I eventually got over that hurdle. But Kelly, tell us, what in the world is an ELT and why do we need them?
Yeah, I totally get the changing acronyms is super confusing. But like, as we've listed it here, ELT stands for extract, load, transform. And this is exactly the type of process that this tool is going to do. It extracts all of the data from your data sources. So pulling it from all of these disparate areas, it packages it, and then dumps it or loads it. I like dumping it. It sounds funnier, I guess, into your data warehouse. And then at this point in your modern stack, this is where you can start to transform your data and pass it along to your business users. And the reason kind of the acronyms have changed, I know we're doing ETL, ELT. Traditionally, the transformation piece may have sat before you got your data into your warehouse. So you would have to do a lot of the processing before you even got to store all of your data. But kind of in the modern technology pieces now, we're moving towards a process where that transformation happens after you store your data. So you have everything accessible in your warehouse and all the tools that you need.
That was absolutely brilliant. And if we could do a like small incantation to the acronym gods to not change it again.
Let's leave it at 3. It sometimes goes to ETLT, but we'll save that for another episode.
No, that's like a triple Lutz. Okay, so why do these have to exist? Because that's always been my big question. It's like, wait, the data's there. Why can't I just get it? It's my dang data. Why can't I have it? So why do they exist?
Yeah, same questions. I think as a business, your strategies and tactics tend to expand. You're using more data sources. You need more pieces of information about your customer. So as these strategies expand, the more important the consolidation of your data becomes. So the ELT process really helps in automating that flow of data and consolidating it into your data warehouse. So yes, oh, yeah. That's why, yeah. So with the ELT tool, you're able to customize the data pipelines as we talked about. These are going to be unique to your custom marketing strategies. And then you kind of just get to set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about constantly changing the flow, constantly pinging. This is going to be automated for you. It's kind of like a data pipeline as a service. Yeah.
That is the first time I truly, truly understood it. Because when you say set it and forget it, that I get, because I can't tell you how many spreadsheets that I've had to have updated in my life because something.
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh, thank you. But before we move on, I just have to ask, what happens if you don't have an ELT?
Yeah, I mean, your data warehouse is going to be pretty empty then, Julie. Like without kind of this data pipeline as a service, the detriment is really that this process still needs to happen. So if you don't have a tool that's automating this, then these pipelines still have to be built, maintained, monitored internally by your own company's data engineers and developers. And yeah, this is really expensive. It takes a long time. The end results are not very flexible. And then you're focusing a lot of your technical talent and focusing them on these specialized tasks that are not kind of their expertise or where they could be spending more of their competent time. So I would say that, Julie, time is money. Your ELT partner really impacts your bottom line and generally the happiness of your developers and your software engineers.
That is such a great explanation. And it just, it reminds me of a conversation I had with Peter maybe a few years ago. And we were talking about this need to move your labor force into more brain force. So the more things you can set and forget, the more things that are automated. I'm assuming the whole intention here is to allow people to use their brains more and not sit there and doing like the spreadsheets and all that kind of, or taking photocopies and highlighting it with 40 colors. So that was amazing. Thank you. So now we come to the data warehouse part of your chart. So I think many of us recognize the brands more than any other segment. I never met anyone who didn't know Amazon or Google, many that didn't know Snowflake, which just had the largest IPO, I think, in tech history. Is that right?
Yeah, that was this year. And we work closely with Snowflake and enable our partners to work with Snowflake. So we're very familiar. But exactly to your point, this category of data warehouse is certainly the most recognizable, some of the most recognizable brands in technology. So component 3, the data warehouse, it really acts as this central hub and storing all of your data under one roof. And I say roof in quotes, as Snowflake and Google and a lot of these brands have moved to cloud data warehousing. So I'm saying this kind of virtual roof that companies are leaning towards now in the modern tech stack. So kind of like taking a step back, we've made it through 3 components here. Jumping back to the ELT component, this is really efficient at moving your data into your warehouse, right? Like we talked through that. And then your data warehouse is really good at holding it all, but the data still often is in a pretty raw state when it's sitting in the warehouse at this first piece. It's really not ready for analyses. It's not ready for your business users to jump in and build all of the charts that they need and get all the answers that they need. It needs to go through another process of transformation. So I think the way that I like to describe this, Julie, is think about building, or not building, but you want to create a recipe. I'm really into cooking right now. I don't know about you in shelter in place, but I've been kind of digging in the kitchen a little bit. And I guess one of the recipes that I've been really into is Gigi Hadid's vodka penne pasta. It's been like really trending on TikTok. I would highly recommend. But in terms of data and processing your data, you can think of all of your data sources as all of the ingredients that you need for this recipe. So from the grocery store, I need to get an onion, I need cream, I need tomato paste, I need pasta, but it's also shelter in place, so I can't go to the grocery store. I have to order on Instacart. So now my Instacart delivery person is going to grab all my raw ingredients and act as my ELT messenger and bring me all the ingredients to my house. And then once I get all those raw ingredients, I put them in my refrigerator, and that's kind of my data warehouse. And so at this point, I can't just throw everything into a pot and say, here's my pasta. I still need to prep and process these ingredients so that they're ready for like me to follow the recipe. I need to chop up onions. I need to mince some garlic. I need to measure out all of my different liquids so that I can create the recipe. So this extra process is the transformation piece that we now need to step into in the different component after your data warehouse and all of your data is stored there.
That was such, you know me, girl. I love a good analogy. I'm just going to throw another one at folks, not so much as an analogy. Oh, it is a bit of an analogy. I hope everybody's enjoying this because I am learning so much and I love this so much. And Kelly, you're doing such a bang up job, especially for your maiden voyage of doing your first interview. And what I love about back in my day, we had on PBS, they had this thing about how a bill becomes a law. And it was this little song thing. It's like, I'm just a bill sitting here on Capitol Hill. And so this is what it reminds me of. And so I get it. I understand it. I'm just going to ask you next time that you're going to do it, to a song.
We'll work on it.
As we are moving forward here about how a bill becomes a law or how data becomes more digestible for us and can help us. So how do I organize my data so I can start answering my marketing questions? Because you're telling me how it gets in there, what we need, how it moves around, where it goes. And I know this is your sweet spot. So tell us about transformation and, and what actually Panoramic empowers.
So yeah, as we just kind of spoke about, that transformation layer sits in between our component 3, which is our data warehouse, and then component 5, which is our visualization tool. And this really serves the core purpose of automating the blending, mapping, modeling of all of your data sources. So these are processes, again, that are traditionally requiring engineering resources and that they have extensive knowledge and expertise of SQL, which is kind of a structured querying language. And this really adds another buffer between you as a marketer and the data answers that you need. So looking at the process that needs to happen, there's now, again, different tech tools in the marketing analytics space that act as point solutions like Panoramic, like where I work, who offer this no code or low code platform that have these user-friendly interfaces where business users can kind of type, drag and drop, toggle to execute these same technical processes. But now you don't need to know these technical languages, and now you don't need to have all of these engineers on standby to update any requests that you need as a business user now. So, I mean, I know that sounded kind of pitchy, but we can move on from that.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Go on to the next phase. The next step is, this feels a bit like you just, and I wrote this down when you were talking. Mm-hmm. It sounds a bit like another set and forget. I get the low code part, that maybe not all the time you can set it and forget it.
Yep.
I think that what this sounds like to me is that this is just this is a step that, and I get calling it transformation. Transformation can be used in so many ways, but it's another step that will get you the proper information balanced properly, where you don't have to keep going back and looking at it and checking, and because time is, like you told me, you lectured me a minute ago, Julie, time is money. And this sounds like another piece where time is money because you're able to set and forget it. Is that true?
Yeah, exactly. So the processes that you're talking about where you can set and forget, as a marketer now, if you're taking control of this kind of critical transformation piece, you're able now as the user to define the business logic, to normalize all of the metrics and dimensions that are important to your team. You get to centralize all of the custom calculations and KPIs. I think one that comes to my mind is modified engagement rate was really important to your team when we were working with Fox. These custom metrics that need additional business logic on top of them and don't just come straight from the data source. So now you have control to set up these calculations, set up how you want your data to display without needing to kind of relay and buffer that information through another team.
It feels and sounds to me that you guys, what you've been doing at Panoramic is, in the best of ways, a little bit ahead of your time. And I love that, because there's nothing better than being ahead of a curve, because this is not something that was talked about just a year, 2 years ago, something like that. So I get this to me as a marketer is really crucial, because every data set has different rules to it, or they have different definitions, and it gets messy, right? It's like a 3-second view versus 20 seconds versus full. I mean, all of those things that we always grapple with about and so I think what you're talking about is like level setting all of that. And I think that's a really crucial thing for a marketer, because the number one thing that we have to do as marketers, and I know you know this better than anybody, which is we have to have objectivity, right? Objectivity is the most important thing as a human that we can do when we look at data. And if that helps with the objectivity for whoever's team it may be, they win. So that was a great explanation. Thank you. So now that our data is transformed, where do we go now?
Yeah, so now that it's transformed, you've set up all of these processes that are bringing your data to where you need it. You can either visualize it in a dynamic tool. So like in Panoramic, we also have simple visualizations, or you can push out the configurations that you create into a BI tool like Tableau or Power BI, which as a marketer, you're probably still familiar with, similar to the data warehouse. So the real power in the visualization tool comes when you're connecting multiple data sources, as you said, getting all of your data to speak the same language and use this single source of truth for all of the teams that need to get these answers.
Isn't that what we're all looking for, right? I mean, isn't that what every CEO in America would be like, please, marketing, do this for me. Give me the truth. Let me know where we stand and let me know immediately. You know, I mean, because I always take all of this, I try to look through the eyes of a CEO. Because when I worked for Stacy, my job was what keeps her up at night, right? And it's obviously business things. And so it's like, what things is she struggling with? And so when I look at this, it's like, gosh, I couldn't imagine a CEO alive that would want their organization to adopt, you know, this process and these tools. And so I'm here to tell you, this was so incredibly helpful, Kelly. It was so helpful to me. I can't think of it. And I hope everybody watching feels the same way. Do you have any parting advice for folks? I think you should have the opportunity to speak to them, you know, freely with just some general thoughts.
Free for all. Yeah, thanks, Julie. It's been awesome chatting with you. I know we talk a lot, and I'm excited for the rest of the series and the rest of the deep dive that all of the guests are going to go into. But I'll leave with the parting thought that we kind of talked through a lot, and navigating the current MarTech experience may seem kind of overwhelming. Like there's so many companies, tools, technology solutions, but it's good to remember that all of these tools are designed to make your life better as a marketer. It's not supposed to be confusing. It's not supposed to be overwhelming. It's supposed to make your processes really efficient and make your job easier. So I think getting excited and shifting that mindset to focus on the end goal of the MarTech stack, upskilling your knowledge now as a marketer, it's a good time. Your knowledge and understanding is going to help you market smarter. You're going to make better data-driven decisions from that single source of truth that all of your teams, sales, marketing, your business team are using. You're going to be able to create more personalized experiences for all of your customer touch points, which is key. And my favorite is thinking about that this is going to save a lot of time on tasks that technology can just do for you. A lot of this process, yes, it's kind of an overhead to set up, but like you're saying, our motto now, set it and forget it. You're really saving all this time on mundane data collection tasks, and you can spend your time more on looking at the data and driving those brain insights that we said towards the end.
Oh, I love it. You did an incredible job, sister. An incredible job. Thank you so much. And to you, those that are tuning in, and thank you for being here for a maiden voyage of Speaking of Data. And I think every time I should do a head turn, Speaking of Data. Come back, keep coming back, because we will dive deeper into each MarTech segment, and we may have a few surprises for you along the way. And one of maybe my labradoodle, but she's still a surprise. So thank you for tuning in. And as folks, be safe and always be curious. Thank you.